Hello, everybody. Recording live from somewhere. Hello.
What up, what up, what up, what up? Hey, man, we tapping in on this afternoon time. It's afternoon time, we tapping in, man. What's good? Holla back. Up in the comments, man. What's good, man? Let's get this shit started. Man. A little bit of midday delight. And the only reason that I'm tapping in at this time of the afternoon because I saw some shit that was pretty interesting. And I'm not really inclined to say who I saw. But I saw this gentleman giving a lecture on the King James Bible. And he did a good job. He went through a lot of the history points that we've all talked about before. So it wasn't like it was new information. But as I heard the brother giving his interpretation or rendition of the history of the King James Bible and so on and so forth, there was a lot of information I noticed that the brother was leaving out. And I'm not saying it was intentional. Maybe it wasn't, for his point to be made, but I just noticed a lot of information was not being talked about in this brother's lecture dealing with King James and the Bible. And y'all know how we do on here. Like, we pretty thorough when it comes to information about the Bible. Exactly what it is, Queen. Absolutely. It is lunch and learn. I love it. I'm gonna have to take that and start using it, lunch and learn. A little midday snack, you know what I'm saying? A 30-minute, 45-minute brain workout before you go back into the plantation. You know what I'm saying? Lunch and learn. I fucking love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So I was listening to what the brother was saying. I'm like, man, he's missing a lot of information, a lot of important jewels, you know what I'm saying, when it comes to the historicity of Christendom. And we have to be clear, family. We're talking about Christendom. Christendom. We're not talking about the church your grandma went to. We're not talking about the church you got baptized in. We're not talking about Ebenezer Baptist Church, Lord in Christ, Macedonia Baptist Church, First African Baptist, Second African Baptist Church, Episcopal. We're not talking about, that's another lecture. And in fact, this is gonna have to be like a 5-10 part series. Really, the physical buildings that y'all go to called churches, that's a whole lecture just for that part alone. But we're gonna go back. We're gonna go back in time. Please get your pens and your pads, take notes, or go back and view this later when you have the opportunity later tonight and write notes. And of course, I will be showing receipts. I will be showing you the individuals, the names, people, places, and things. For all my disciples out there. And at this point, if you're a disciple, you know who you are. You know who you are. Shouts out to all my disciples. Anybody can be a disciple. There's no secret club to being a disciple. You have to become disciplined in your studies and just learning all together. I don't know how else to say it. You have to be disciplined in your studies. So let's just dive right into this shit, because ain't no need to tarry. No need to tarry. There's no need to tarry. So again, going over the historicity of Christendom. How did it start? How did it begin? What happened? What didn't happen? What books were taken out? What books were added? Who's lying and who's telling the truth? And the version I'm going to give you today is really the history of Christendom. It has nothing to do with Christianity, because Christianity, they say, is based on the fact that you are followers of Christ. We're going to deal with that word Christ. We're not going to play semantics. Jesus of Nazareth was not a Samaritan. So we're not going to play semantics today with these words. These words are exactly what they are. You know, we deal with etymology over here. All my disciples deal with etymology. We don't have time for definitions. We don't have time for the colloquial meanings of things. We don't have time for the connotative. We're talking about the de jure, denotative meaning of the word itself. So Christ, or the term Christ itself. And I'm kind of glad that the brother made that comment, because it's going to lead me into my first point of the evening, of dealing with the word Christ. Now, the word Christ is often mistakenly understood to mean the followers of Jesus Christ. This is what it's mistakenly known to mean, the followers of Jesus Christ. That's what it's supposed to mean, right? Or has been taught to mean. Let's take a look at what Jesus said about this word Christ. And this is Jesus talking. This is Jesus talking. For those of you who got your pens and your papers, we're coming out of Matthew 24, fourth verse. Matthew 24, 4 through 31. We're not going to go entirely through 31, but there's a part in here I want you guys to see what Jesus said, because that's who we're talking about. He is the thesis of this conversation, along with a couple other things that you may or may not have known about, or you may have heard about this stuff. You may have heard about this stuff. Peace and love, man. Let's do some house cleaning, house maintenance right quick. House maintenance. How rude of me. Peace and love. Tipsy checked in early. Tipsy, I saw you on here like early before the broadcast even started. So peace and love to you. The L's and the bays are the wheels and the ways. You know, the L's and the bays always checking in. Cherie Reed L, peace and love, peace and light. The good brother True King always tapping in. Peace, family, with the Ashe in there. Peace, family. What's going on? Tress Hutchison, what's good? Got Bruce Lee in the building. Dre Mills, what's good? Brandon Dixon, Grand Rising family, what's going on? My pen and paper crew, man. Boy, I'm gonna have to put together like some specialty pens and pads and just mail them out to y'all, man. I'm telling you. The pen and paper crew, man. When you take notes on something and go back and do your own research, it becomes something you know, not something you heard. You know what you're talking about. You're not repeating or reciting what you heard. You're not parakeeting information. You're taking the time to understand it and to question, scrutinize it, examine the information. Please don't believe a word I say, family. I'm not here to convince or persuade any of you. This is just information. Please do your own research. If you find me in error, email me. I'll give you my email right now. If you find me in error with anything I'm saying on this evening, send me an email. Say, hey, man, I looked at what you said and you was incorrect. And give me the citation, and I'll do my own due diligence and research it. But the fact of what happens is we both learn something. And that's the whole point. I'm not here to debate with anybody about anything. All right. So let's start with this Christ. Let's start with this term Christ, or the implication of the word Christ itself. Now, really, really, really to dig down in this shit, y'all, we're gonna have to do a little bit of research when it comes to words. Okay? I mean, it's gonna become excruciating important that you write these words down in order to understand, to have an overstanding or understanding about what's happening. And Jesus answered them, talking to his disciples, take heed that no man deceives you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am. Now, let's just deal with the word I am for 1 second, okay? We're going to come right back to that. Well, let's finish that. Jesus is warning his disciples. He said, take heed that no man deceives you. Do not be deceived. Do not be deceived. And there's other examples in here when Jesus tell you about the deception of what's to come and what's going to happen. Jesus even points out how they're going to deceive you. He's even going to tell you how. They're going to tell you that I'm over here, I'm in the woods, I'm on top of a house. Do not believe them. It's what Jesus said. This is Jesus talking. This is what Christianity is supposedly founded off of. I'm going to show you the real Christos, or the real Christ, Krios. I'm going to show you the real Kores, the one that you're mistakenly being out to be Yeshua al-Mashiach, Isa el-Maryam, Yahshua. Or we can just say Jesus of Nazareth, the Nazarite, son of Mary and Joseph. He is saying, don't let nobody fool y'all. Don't let nobody fool y'all. Don't be fooled. Many shall come and say that I am Christ and deceive many. So when we're talking about Christianity and the followers of Christianity, let's see what the early followers of Christianity were called. How about we do that? But in order to do that, let's find out what Christ means first. Let's deal with the etymology. Let's deal with the etymon. Okay, now right off the gate, blow up a little bit for y'all to see it. Right off the gate, I'm seeing Greek and Latin. Greek and Latin. Y'all see that? Off the cuff, we see the designated language the word comes from. Now, this is etymology. This is source origin. This is firsthand. This is not a definition. This is not has been changed to reflect the times that we're living in. This is not what etymology is. This is the origin of the word. You're going to see Greek, you're going to see Latin, and you're going to see Hebrew. On your pieces of paper, or whatever you're writing on, write down Greek, Latin, and Hebrew across the top of your paper. This is going to become very important. I'm going to show you guys how to make an outline and track this information. So you're going to write down Greek, Latin, Hebrew across the very top of your paper. Now go to another sheet of paper or the back of that paper, it doesn't matter. And across the top of your new piece of paper, write down the word time, T-I-M-E, and write down the word space, S-P-A-C-E, and then write down who. So that's time, space, who on your second piece of paper. On your first piece of paper, you're going to write Greek, Hebrew, and Latin. On the second sheet of paper, you're going to write down time, space, and who across the top. I'm going to give you the dates, which is the time. I'm going to give you the location, which is the space. I'm going to give you the who, which are the names of these people. Now, on your first piece of paper, under Greek, Hebrew, and Latin, we're going to track these different texts. These are not books yet. We're going to talk about the Bible, too. The different texts. The text either going to come out of Latin, which is known as Vulgate, V-A-L-G-U-T, I think it is. We'll deal with that in a second. The Vulgate. Okay. Then, I'm sorry, Latin is Vulgate. I apologize. Latin is the Vulgate. We're going to deal with the Vulgate and find out what that is. You also have what's known as the Septuagint. Some say Septuaginta, but it's Septuagint, right? Then you have the Hebrew, which is known as the Torah or the Tanakh or the Pentateuch. But we're not going to deal with beliefs today, okay? We're not going to deal with beliefs today. Okay. I got a comment. And y'all know I'm keen about reading comments because I believe in interacting with you guys, and I appreciate that. Other motherfuckers just talk the whole time and ignore y'all. I don't do that. This is an inclusive conversation for everybody to join in. Brother says, bro, here as a teacher of thought, educated from the school of thought, some are self-taught, some need teaching, but is a great diviner of knowledge and wisdom he has become, meaning of life become. Okay. It was kind of deep. But listen, back to this. I want you guys to focus on the word Christ for a second, because now we're dealing with what the word means. You know how the Bible say in the beginning was the word, and the word was God, and the word became. What was the word? What was the word? Give me that word. So we see Greek, we see Hebrew, we see Latin, we see Old English. That probably disqualifies any type of African origin. And I'm going to say African origin because we're in that part of the world. This is the space we're in. All right. Put your mind into Europe. It's going to be Spain, Portugal, Italy, Germany, Russia area, Norway, Denmark, Sweden, all the way down to the Mediterranean, right above what you call North Africa, Greece, where the Greeks are, or better known as the Sardinians and Tuscans, sorry. Then go to North Africa. Now we're in what's called the Asia Minor area, Northern Africa. This is Egypt. This is Morocco. This is Turkey. This is the area we are. Nowhere in the meaning of this word do you see any African connection. I'm going to say African, Black connection, Negroid connection. Nowhere in the meaning of this word do you see that there's a connection of, I'm sorry, I'm getting my screen together, y'all. Nowhere in there do you see a connection coming from you. Nobody look like you. So we can almost stop the argument right here, just on where the word come from. It says anoint is the Greek. Hebrew, it means Messiah. Now, Messiah is going to become important in a second, because they're gonna connect the word Messiah, which comes from the Egyptian word. So write down the word Messiah under Hebrew. On your piece of paper, you got Greek, Latin, Hebrew. Under the word Hebrew category, write down the word Messiah. Let's write down the spelling of it, how they got it. Let's write down Messiah, because we're going to trace the word Messiah back, which comes out of Egypt, from which this whole conversation is about to kick off. The different council meetings all started in Africa. I'm going to show you where the image of this Krios, or this Christ, comes from. I'm going to show you where all this stuff comes from, but y'all have to keep up and stay out of your belief for at least the time we're on this live. Just try not to believe anything right now. Just listen and take notes and think for a second. Think. This is going to require some critical thinking skills just for a little bit. The word Christ comes out of the Greek, comes out of the Hebrew, meaning Messiah. Greek, it means anointed. Christus, out of the Latin. Old English, Christ. It says across the bottom, Old English Christ, Latin Christos, from the Greek Christos, noun, used as an adjective meaning anointed, from Creole anointed, translating Hebrew to Mashiach, to Messiah. Let's look up the original word for Messiah while we're just right here for shits and giggles, right? So now we're going to come out of the word Christ, going to the word Messiah. We're going to the origin of, like, the OG, where it comes from. It says Mashiach. It says it's a empirical Arabic, classical, Syriac. Latin literally means anointed one. Now let's go here, because we're going to trace the word back. We're not going to put in etymology. We're just putting in where the word comes from. The anointed. Messiah. What is Jesus' name in Egypt, they say? Now we're going to go back to Egypt. Now we're in Egypt. Remember, I said we're going to stay in a region called the Asia Minor, Africa, Egypt. Why is Jesus in Egypt? Why is Jesus in Egypt? Why did we get from the word Christian? The word Christian to the word Christ to the word Messiah? And it's taken us from the Greeks back in time, back into Egypt. And it's going to point to this fella who they call Jesus. See right here? I-U-S-A. Because there was no letter J just yet. Not just yet. There is no Jesus just yet. Jesus is what they call this individual at this particular time in Egypt. Let's trace it back further. Let's go back further. Do some more digging real quick. Now that we understand that part, let's just jump right into it. Fuck it. I don't care. There's your Jesus. This is the Jesus. This is Jesus Christ. Christos, Christus, the Greek, because that's what the word Christ comes from. So the individuals who are calling themselves Christians, let's find out if the people who are calling themselves Christians are serving Jesus Christ. Because that's what we're told, right? Christians follow Jesus Christ. Let me show you this. Just keep it right here. Let's go right here. We're called Christians. I think I spelled it right. Let's go here. Now, let me set this shit up for y'all real quick. This is BC time frame we're talking about. I don't want nobody talking no shit right now. We haven't even got to the fact that Jesus the Christ is even born yet. And we're talking about Christ and Christians. Before he was born, prior to him being born, way before he was born. Okay? Does everybody understand that part? What you see on your screen right now has nothing to do with the guy in the Bible. Neither one of those guys in the Bible. We've already learned that there's 4 Jesus in the Bible by name. We know that already. This has nothing to do with that. This is Christ. This is a whole separate entity. This is a created creature known as Serapis Christos. And the devotees of Serapis Christos at the Serapian temples in Egypt. See, we still in Egypt. Remember Jesus? I just showed you how Jesus was in Egypt, or his Egyptian name, Jesus. I just showed you Jesus' Egyptian name on the screen. Now we're in Alexandria, Egypt. The reason it's called Alexandria, Egypt, due to the fact of Alexander the Greek, who came into ancient Egypt. And when he left, he did leave one of his generals there. Young Payola, what's good, bro? When Alexander left Egypt, he left his general, Ptolemy I Soter. And the word Soter comes from the word savior. And do you want, oh boy, we're about to get into it. Do you know what do you know what Ptolemy I did in Egypt? Does anybody know what Ptolemy I did in Egypt? If it's your first time hearing about Ptolemy, let me know. Who has never heard of Ptolemy? See, at this time, there is no Jesus at this time in written history. Not yet. They're going to have at least 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 council meetings to figure this idea out. When I say they, we're talking about the Byzantine Empire, also known as the Holy Roman Catholic Church. And some type of way, these popes who were once in charge received their ecclesiastical authority from Rome. And if you never heard of Constantine, pretty sure you have. Constantine set up something called the Donation of Constantine. And we're going to show that in a second. The Donation of Constantine gave up his ecclesiastical authority, which is his Holy Roman seat. He gave it up in exchange to be accepted into Christianity. This is called the Council of Ferrara in Florence. And he gave his ecclesiastical authority over to an individual by the name of Sylvester. Now, Sylvester was an African Coptic bishop. And from there, I'm going to show you guys how all these different, what they call schisms, you had different fascists of believers, because there was no Jesus Christ yet. You had different fascists of believers called monothelitism was a thing. You had diaphysitic. I'm going to show you these words and these terms in a second, so write this shit down. We're going to learn. So in Alexander, Egypt, those who worship Serapis are in fact Christians, and who call themselves bishops of Christ are in fact devotees of Serapis. Those individuals who worship Christ are in fact devotees of Serapis. Those who worship this shit are actually truly worshiping Serapis. This is what Serapis looks like. This is what your Jesus looks like. This is Serapis Christos, the Christ. And based off this image, based off this idea, and this image is something that's called iconoclasm, the breaking of an image. Iconoclasm. But we'll get to iconoclasm, Empress Irene, people like Jacob Ben Laspel, the Jacobite Church. We'll get to all that in a second. But for right now, understand this is Jesus Christ. This is Serapis. How did Serapis come into existence? How did Serapis even come into existence? For that, we got to go back and deal with Ptolemy, who I told you about earlier. He had his own temple. Another term for Christians, which appears in the New Testament, Nazareans, Jesus is named Nazarene in Matthew 2:23, while Paul is said to be the Nazarene in Acts 24:5. The latter verse makes it clear that Nazarenes are also referred to, but the name is sect heresy, well known as, I don't know what that has to do with what we were talking about, but I thought it was interesting though. Here we go right here. Serapis was an invented god. They got Zerporus. I can show you who that is too. Was an invented god. He was composite of several Egyptian and Hellenistic deities. That's incorrect. I'm going to show you who he was. Who was introduced to the world at the beginning of the Ptolemy Greek period in ancient Egypt. During the reign of Ptolemy I, thought his legacy lasted well into the Roman period. This is going to run right into the Holy Roman Empire. This is exactly the setup for what we now call the Roman Emperor, the Roman Pope, the Roman Church, all these etc. That's why this is called the Holy War. They didn't pick up swords yet. By the time we get to part 5 of this shit, we'll talk about the Hospitallers and the Knights Templars and the Army of God, like on part 5 and 6. But at this point, there's no idea of it. There's no King James version of nothing yet. This is the ground floor, y'all, of how Christendom got started. This is the ground floor. Serapis. How did Serapis get made? Serapi is a Serapi is a combination of two deities. Serapis comes from Apis and Osiris. But more particularly, let's talk about Apis. Apis the bull also appears throughout the scriptures until we get to the time of Moses and Aaron. Apis the bull can be seen being slayed in some cultures. He's being sacrificed. Serapis comes from Apis the bull and Osiris. also rapists. So when Ptolemy came into ancient Egypt, that's all they saw. That's all they saw. This is the only thing they saw. They didn't see anything else in Egypt but this on the walls. Osiris the father. There was no other deity. Amun, Aman, not the same primordial deities, different deities. Atun, different deities. When the Greeks came into Egypt, this is what they saw: the power and the might and the strength, the spirituality of the ancestors. This is what they saw when they came into ancient Egypt, the Greeks. And what he decided to do was amalgamate. That means to put them together. He decided to put them together. And this is what he fashioned out of putting Apis and Osiris together, who were the two main deities of ancient Egypt. Serapis, a Greco-Egyptian god, a synergic deity derived from the worship of the Egyptian Osiris and Apis. Serapis was extensively popularized in the 3rd century BC. He was popularized in the 3rd century BC. BC is before Jesus Christ was fucking born. Use my language. BC is before the Nazarite fella with the nativity scene was even on the planet. BC means before Christ, according to what we're talking about. AD means in the year of our Lord. We have not made it into AD yet. There's been no crucifixion. There's been no birth. There's no Eastern Star yet. There's no 3 wise men happening yet. There's no King Herod yet. There's nothing happening in Europe at all. This is human history. Nothing has taken place yet. It's going to be hard for you to understand today's lesson if you're still believing. So I ask you, just stop believing for a couple minutes and think for yourself. Just think. Use your God-given ability to think for a minute. This created creature was created in BC, 3rd century BC, by Ptolemy I Soter, as a means of unifying Greek and Egyptian subjects of the Ptolemaic kingdom. Remember earlier on your piece of paper? On your piece of paper, I asked you to write down 3 things. On the first piece was Hebrew, Latin, and Greek. Under your Greek category, write down Ptolemy I Soter, Ptolemy, Roman numeral 1, Soter. Now, there were other successors of Ptolemy. You have Ptolemy I Eugetes. You have Ptolemy I Philadelphia. These are his sons, his ones who came after him. So under the Greek side of your paper, write this down. Write down Ptolemy I Soter. We're going to cover the Hebrew side in a second, and we're also going to cover the other side. I forgot what the other one was, the 3rd category. But for right now, put this under your Greek category. Oh, Latin. It was Latin. That's right. It was Latin. We got that going? All right. Let's dig a little bit more. Serapis. And I'm only really covering this because remember earlier I showed y'all what Jesus said. Jesus said, be careful that nobody deceives you. They will come in my name saying that I am the Christ. And I am is first person singular. It doesn't say the. It says I am Christ and deceive many. Later, we see Peter and his brother Simon say, we have found the Messiah, which is being interpreted as Christ. So the Nazarite, the baby in the basket with Mary and Joseph, That guy said, don't let nobody fool y'all into thinking that I'm the Christ, because I'm not the Christ. This is your Christ. This is your Christ. And I'm going to prove it. This is Serapis. Serapis Christos was a deity. Yeah, you may know about Thoth. And yeah, you may know about Nefertiti, Tefnut, Shu, Gab, Mayat, and so on and so forth. But do you know about Ptolemy I Soter's deity by the name of Serapis? This was an Egyptian deity. This was the last Egyptian deity that the Europeans saw, and they took it. And they gave you something totally different. Something totally different. They gave you something totally different from it. We're going to deal with it. Serapis was a Greco-Egyptian god. The cultus of Serapis. See? Cultus. Let's look up the cultus real quick. If it stay up there. The vocabulary of ancient Roman religion was highly specialized. Its study afforded important information about religion, traditions, and beliefs to the ancient Romans. This legacy of conspicuous in in European culture, history, and its influence on latter judicial and religious vocabulary. This is the cultus. The cultus of Serapis was spread as a matter of deliberate policy by subsequent Ptolemaic kings. I told you it was a lot of them. Serapis continued to increase in popularity during the Roman Empire. This is where we get into the whole message of today. This is the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire was a post-republican state of ancient Rome. It's generally understood to mean the period of territory ruled by Romans, following Octavian's assumption of the sole role under the participant in 27 BC. It included territories in Europe, North Africa, and Western Asia. The Roman Empire went all the way into Africa. The Roman Empire. This, it won't stay up there. Hold on, let's click on it. See what happens. We just go to it. There we go, right here. All this territory right here. This is Italy. This is North Africa, also known as Asia Minor. This is the Roman Empire. This is 117 AD, however, but this is the Roman Empire. All this right here. They ruled and pretty much ran all that shit. And it just so happened to come down into the territory that we call Egypt. And while that was in the territory called Egypt, they sought up this deity known as Serapis. Serapis continued to increase in popularity during the Roman Empire after he replaced Osiris and Isis. Let's just stop right there for 1 second. If the Greeks replaced Osiris and Isis, who were supposed to be two of the most adhered to deities in African Egyptian studies, like without Osiris and without Isis, there is no Haru. Now we can call them Aset. Call them their real names, but Osiris and Isis got replaced by this deity. Now, Osiris and Isis become empirical later in these council meetings we're going to talk about too. So just keep in mind Osiris and Isis getting replaced. That's the father and the mother getting replaced. And we know the son is Haru or Horus. So this is going to be the beginning of what they've known as the Trinity. This is the Trinity being replaced. Watch how they do it. Stay with me. Don't get ahead of me now. Stay with me. I'm going to walk y'all through this shit. So Osiris and Isis were replaced. It was idolized. Watch this. The Greeks had little respect for animal-headed figures, and so a Greek-style anthropomorphic, you should know that word, Anthropomorphic is what everybody do with their birth signs. Oh, I'm a Cancer. I'm a Scorpio. It's called anthropomorphicize. When you take something and you put an image on it, like a scorpion or two crabs, that's called anthropomorphicism. So they anthropomorphicize this thing also. The Greeks had very little respect for animal-headed figures. So the Greek style, this is their style. Their style is called anthropomorphic statues, were chosen as idols. Now the Greek then replaced everything in Egypt with their shit and proclaimed as the equivalent or highly popularized Apis. They said that their deities, they done made this created creature named named Serapis. They've made Serapis equal to Osiris and Isis. Now, Serapis didn't have nothing to do with Nun, Shu, Gab, Tefnut, none of that. They created this creature named Serapis Christos. Created, made him up out of nowhere. They took two of your ancestor deities and amalgamized those two deities and came up with a whole nother fucking skit. And we haven't even got to the Bible. They haven't even figured the book out yet. Nobody has written anything yet. Remember, this is BC. This is BC. Keep that in mind. So anytime we talk about Serapis Christos being Jesus, this is BC. Look at the image, with the beard and the hair and the cup on his head. The cult status of Serapis that Ptolemy erected at Alexander enriched. In fact, let's go back to this right here. In fact, they closed down all the temples in Egypt. And they took all the manuscripts and all the books and put them into one building called the Library of Alexander in northern Egypt. That's what they did. They got the scrolls, they got the sketches, they got the blueprints for the pyramid. They took all that shit. They got the emerald tablets. Anything you could think of came out of Egypt. And they put it into one building. And that building was heavily guarded by Greek soldiers. And Ptolemy went into the Egyptian triad, the holy triad of ancient Egypt, which was Osiris the father, Isis the mother, and Haru, the S-U-N, not the S-O-N, of God. And God the Father is Osiris. Later, I'm going to show you how they tried to amalgamate the information by giving you what is known as the Nicene Creed. In your church, it's called the Homogeneous Creed or the Hanatican, which makes you believe that the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit are all one. That's called the Holy Triune that was made up. I'm going to show you in the Council of Chalcedon and the Council of Ephesus where they made Mary the mother of this creature. Because at this point right now, family, Serapis don't have a mother or father. At this point, Serapis have nor mother nor father. At this point. Remember, they took Apis and Osiris and amalgamated two deities and put them together to make Osorapis. The word Apis is still in there. This is the Jesus, Christ, the Christos. This is Serapis Christos. Maybe if I showed you that. Let's read about what's on his head. Somebody asked that question. It said, both. There we go. The statue suitably depicted a figure resembling Hades or Pluto. Look at Hades. Look at Pluto. Christianity is what they call henotheism. I've just, in the past, 20 minutes, I've shown you how they took two of the Egyptian deities, Apis and Osiris, and they took two of the Greek and Roman deities, Hades and Pluto, and they amalgamated those deities into one entity known as Serapis Christos, or the Christ, the Anointed One, so on and so forth. blah, blah, blah. This is a created image. Now I'm going to show you the council meetings. Now we can talk about the council meetings. Most people just talk about the fact that they had council meetings and, oh yeah, the Council of Nicaea and blase, blase. How did the Council of Nicaea come about? Can anybody tell me that in the comments? How did the Council of Nicaea come about? This is your first time tapping in with me. This is a participatory situation. You have to participate in the comments. I'm not here just to entertain y'all. This is a classroom. You see some hands raised, some questions being asked, so on and so forth. Participate. You participate in something, this makes you learn. It makes the learning easier because you're willing. You know what I'm saying? When you're sitting there just being entertained, the shit may not stick. He was shown enthroned with a Midas, a basket, grain measure on his head. So that's a basket on his head, not a cup. It's a basket. And it comes from the Greek underworld. Both being kings of Greek underworld, and was shown enthroned with a Midas. What is a Midas? They even have the words highlighted for y'all to read the shit. The Midas is a type of flat top cylindrical headdress or crown found in ancient Egypt art of Greco-Roman world. Look like a fez, don't it? The name was given to scholars based on the resemblance to a jar used in Roman unit of dry measure, but probably represents something else. Okay. So that was called a Midas or a basket. It's not a cup. It's called a Midas. Write that down. Midas. M-O-D-I-U-S. Dios. Midas. It was a Greek symbol. He also held a scepter. Remember this? Remember this right here. That scepter in his hand. I'm sorry. There we go. He had a scepter in his hand. Let's just go to the fucking picture. Remember this staff. That scepter in his hand. Because we're going to see that again in somebody else's hand. There's going to be a hook on it. I'm going to show you all about that. So anyway, that's who the statue is what appears to have to be a serpent at the base fitting of the Egyptian symbol of rulership of Uraeus. So they put the Uraeus on there. Now, this is not demonic. This is the type of Egyptian script. You had the hieratic and you had the demotic form of writing. You had the pictorial form, which you guys are used to seeing, which is called the hieroglyphics. Then you had what's called a metaneter. This is the domotic form of script. The domotic is an ancient Egyptian script derived from the northern forms of hieratic used in the Nile Delta. The term was first used by the Greek historian Herodotus to distinguish it from the hieratic and hieroglyphic script. By the convention of the word demotic is capitalized in order to distinguish from the demotic Greek. So this is a form of writing. This is how the Egyptians. I'm sorry. This is how the Greeks got their alphabet. Also, by the way, from using what's called the demotic form of writing. Osiris, the name of the deity derived from the centric worship of Osiris and Apis, the single deity under the Egyptian name, whatever this is right here, Osiris. This was later written by the Coptic. Write down the word Coptic. Coptic. That's going to become very, very, very important that you know what Coptic is, because I'm going to use the word Melkite Coptic Egyptian, or the Coptic Egyptian community. I'm going to use, those were the priests of Egypt at the time who, dare I say, allowed this shit to happen. Okay, we're going to talk about some other Egyptian priests who was involved, like the brother Sylvester. Eutychius also was another one. But people like Arius, who was an Egyptian brother also. These are brothers, okay? These are so-called black people. The Greeks came into Egypt. Remember that. In 32 BC, they came into Egypt for the first time. They didn't know what was happening. They just walked into a place with the pyramids are still outstanding today to us who never seen them in 2024. Imagine when it was fresh, with a fresh coat of paint on them. And the gold was still drying on the motherfuckers. Imagine seeing them back then. That's what the Greeks saw when they went into Egypt. That's what they saw. And you will be hard pressed to find a picture of an Egyptian army back then, because civilized people don't need an army or a jail. They don't need that stuff when they're civilized. According to Professor Walter Williams, which made sense. Civilized people don't need no jail or army. So when the Greeks came into Egypt, this is what they saw. And remember, the Greeks are conquerors. This is Christendom. Christendom is the conquest, the spreading and the conquest. Christendom and Christianity, not the same. Christ and Messiah, not the same. A thing can be synonymous with a thing, but not be that thing, if that makes sense. Let's move on. So now we established the fact that we got Serapis Christos. Serapis Christos has been sought up in Egypt by Ptolemy I Soter. Ptolemy I Soter now proceeds to either convert people into believing, or the Roman powers to be continue to championize this ideology of the Serapis Christos. Show y'all something else real quick. Give me 1 second. Yeah, let's go back to this real quick. Let's go back to what Jesus had said. Yeah, like this man going back between Jesus and Jesus and Jesus. Listen, this is the Nazarite talking. Now you see why he said this? I am not the Christ. I am not the Christos. I am not Serapis. That's a false deity. And many Christians were called worshipers of Serapis. Still are, because that's who Christ is. Jesus of Nazareth is not the Christ. Christ is a whole title. I just showed you the origin of the title, Christ. Serapis Christos. Serapis Christos. Let's go to image. This is Serapis Christos. This is the Christ. Walter Williams, master teacher, man. Master teacher. I got both his books. And this is how I was able to disseminate this information by way of Walter Williams. Honors. Peace and honors to the elder, man. See, this is why I tell people, the reason I'm able to talk so fluent about stuff, because I studied master teachers like Walter Williams. I studied individuals like Ivan Van Sertima, Dr. Ben, of course, Dr. John Henry Clark, and some of y'all may have heard of these people as if I'm talking about Frederick Douglass. These brothers spent their whole life dealing with history, teaching history, disseminating history. And then there's another brother by the name of Dr. Walter Williams, also sharp. These are elders, though. Some of them passed and gone on. But Professor Walter Williams, he's the reason I'm doing this. This is Jesus Christ. This is the picture of Jesus Christ, better known as Serapis Christos. That's all you need to know about that, all right? And the council meetings we're now about to get into, because now we got to fast forward for time's sake. The council meetings we're going to talk about, keep this image in your head. Also remember that this image was created in 332 BCE, before the Common Era, of course, but before Christ was even born. This was already being talked about. This was already in play. This was already happening. This was already a thing. Constantine knew about this thing already because it's the same empire. This has been perpetuated throughout the Roman Empire. Remember, they were trying to get rid of what was called the Hellenistic period. Let me pull it while I'm talking to y'all. We'll go back to this. See, this is what the Greeks were. The Greeks were trying to come out. See? You gotta see right here. Hellenistic. Relating to Greek history, language, and culture from the death of Alexander the Great to defeat Cleopatra and Mark Antony by Octavian in 31 BC. And in BC time, you count down. Okay, you don't count up, you count down. During this period, Greek culture flourished, spreading throughout the Mediterranean into northeast and Asia, centering on Alexander in Egypt and in Pergami, Turkey, Guma, Turkey. What do Hellenists believe? This is Hellenistic worship. Hellenism is the practice of primarily centered around polytheistic animalistic worship. Read it again. Polytheistic animalistic worship. This is called Hellenistic. Who had a Hellenistic belief also? Think about the poly, many gods, animal heads. Egyptians were also Hellenistic, sorry. Devotees worship the Greek gods, which include the 12 Olympians, divinities, and the spirit of nature, such as nymphs, underworld deities, other gods and heroes. That's Hellenistic. Now, what the Greeks were trying to establish with ancient Egypt, they were trying to start something called this right here. That we all know about this word right here, right? Monotheistic. And monotheistic is the belief that there's only one God. Now, in Islam, they believe monotheistic. In Islam, it's Allah. There's no other God but Allah. He has no helpers. He has nothing. He don't need nothing. He's Almighty God Allah. He is the Malik Yawmuddin. He is the Malik Yawmuddin. That's what Allah is in Islam. Now, in Christianity, however, which Christianity is coming off the stems and the hymns of Serapis Christos, which is an amalgamated deity, a mini deity. They're going to choose. Watch this right here. This is what Christianity is. Christianity, however, is henotheism, adherence to one particular God out of several, especially a family, tribe, or other groups. That's what Christianity is. Adherence to one particular God. They can adhere to one God. You want to go down the list of the names? Let's do it. You have Jehovah Nisi. You have Jehovah Rapha. You have El Shaddai. You have El Shalom. You have El Shadiki. What else you got? Jehovah Nisi, Jehovah Jireh. Adhering to one particular God out of several, especially by family, tribe, or other group. Let's read that one more time. In Christianity, they adhere to one particular God out of several. That's why their God said, put no other God before me. Are there other gods? Let's see. Let's go to the Christian text real quick. Watch this. Let's go to Psalms 82:1. Psalms 82:1. This is the Christian deity in Psalm 82:1. One of the great council texts, Psalm 82:1, he has said, he quoted the New Revised Standard Version of the Bible, which read, God has taken his place in the divine council in the midst of the gods. He holds judgment. He sits, it's a council of him. How many is in their council? I know how many are in my city council. How many divine entities are in this council? And what kind of power do these deities have to even sit close to God? But this God of the Bible, the Christian God, the deity, he sits in the midst of other gods. Let's go back to henotheism. Henotheism, adherence to one particular God out of several, especially by family, tribe, or other group. What do we mean by family, tribe, or other group? Either you're part of the tribe of Dan, the tribe of Issachar. You have the tribe of who else? Give me some more tribes. Yeah, slipped my mind just that quick. Tribe of Reuben, tribe of Simon, tribe of what is his name? You see I'm going with this? This is what Christians, Hebrews believe alike. They deal with henotheism. They're not monotheistic. Tribe of Judah, come on. You either believe in one of the tribes, the 12 tribes, yeah. Adherence to one particular God. What's the God of those 12 tribes' name? You're going to hear Jehovah. You're going to hear El Elyon. You're going to hear Elohim. You're going to hear these names. And there's so many different names. But in Islam, it's Allah Akbar. It's just one God. There are no other deities to name. There are other names for him. You can't even call his name. In fact, the word Allah is not even a name. It means the God or the deity, the Most High, like El Elyon means, right? So in Christianity, they dealt with henotheism, while all the while the Greeks were trying to get out of what's called Hellenistic and try to convert themselves into what was known as monotheistic. But because they were trying to really, really get people to convert and switch and start to believe in this thing right here, they really wanted people to believe in this thing right here. This is what kicks off the council meetings. Keep this image in your head. The picture I'm showing you right now, keep it in your head. This is Serapis Christos, aka Jesus Christ, not the Nazarite. I just showed you. The Nazarite told y'all, be careful that nobody fools y'all. They will come and say that I am Serapis Christos. Do not believe them. They will come and tell y'all that I'm Serapis Christos. This image right here. Don't you believe that? And I'm here to give y'all the truth of the everlasting gospel. And you can take it or let it alone. But you won't be able to say, I didn't know about it. That's what you won't be able to say. If you listen to my voice right now, you would not be able to say you didn't know. You're just choosing not to believe it. And I asked you earlier, do not believe. Don't believe. We ain't got time for belief. It's time to show and prove it. It's time to teach, right? So let's get into it. Let's do it. This is called the First Council of Nicaea. Now, remember earlier, I was telling you about this created creature we just dealt with. This created creature by the name of Serapis Christos. Now, this shit has been going on since 332 BCE. Since then. Now we're dealing with what brought, everybody know about the council meeting. Everybody know about the Council of Nicaea. More people can tell you, oh yeah, I heard about the Council of Nicaea, than can tell you when it happened and why it happened. The next time you ask somebody about the Council of Nicaea, whether it be your preacher man or your brother man, and they ask you, oh yeah, I know about the Council of Nicaea, ask them, what were the 3 reasons of the Council of Nicaea? What were the 3 main reasons of the Council of Nicaea? I'm not here to play with y'all, man. Let's go with the reasons for the Council of Nicaea. What even brought it about? What even brought it about, bro? Share this shit, man. Tag a friend, tell a friend. Come rock with your boy M.O.I, man. And learn something. Actually learn something. You feel me? Actually learn something. What brought about the Council of Nicaea? Its the main accomplishments were settlement of the chronology issues of the divine nature of God the Son and the relationship to God the Father. The construction of the first part of Nicene Creed was called the Homogeneous Creed. I told you, this is the Nicene Creed, mandating uniform observation of the date of Easter. They are creating, they are making it up. The Council of Nicaea, they are now starting to make up the ideology which gives you your religion called Christianity. This is why Noble Drew Ali tells us that we must return the church and Christianity back to the Europeans because they created it for their salvation. The Bible, we're going to keep that book because it's our book. And Jesus of Nazareth, we're going to keep him because that's our brother. They don't get a chance. They can't. But see, they don't got everybody minds confused to this Serapis Christos I just showed you. They got you thinking that Jesus of Nazareth is Serapis Christos when you're not even listening to Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus of Nazareth said, I am not the Christ. They will come and try to fool y'all, though. And a lot of y'all gonna get fooled. That's what he said. And then his two homeboys, Simon and Peter, said, hey, we have found the Messiah. And that's a word we can rock with because the word Messiah goes back to the Hebrew, which goes back to the Egyptian Mashiach, which means anointed with the crocodile fat from the god Sobek. Now I can deal with that part, but just taking a word, Messiah, and making it into another word called Savior and this Christos, and what the fuck are y'all doing? But we allow it to happen. We allow them to make the word Messiah and Christ synonymous when it's not. It's an interpretation, a poor one at that. Especially when you find out the Greeks got their written language from the Egyptians in the first place. I just showed you that. It's called Demotic. The Greeks never had an alphabeta. They got their alphabeta from the Demotic form of writing, the manuscript of ancient Egypt. So everything that they got can be accredited to your forefathers, your ancient forefathers. I don't care where you're from. This is an attribute. These Europeans never invented anything. They took, stitched it together, and resold it back. So the three main reasons for the Council of Nicaea. So now under your categories, let's go back to your categories. I forgot we were in school. I think under your category, you should have Greek, Latin, and I forgot the third one. It's Greek, Latin, and I think it's Egypt or Egyptian. I think the third category was. Anyway, you have three categories on your first piece of paper. Three categories. I think we got Rome. Who's been following along can tell me. Hebrew, there we go. There's three of them. Under the category, why don't you put down? Under the category of Hebrew, you should have the word Messiah. Latin, Greek and Latin. Greek, Latin, Hebrew. Islam. Thank y'all. Greek, Latin, Hebrew. Under your, where I want this to go? Under your Greek category. Under your Greek category, put down Nicene Creed. Nicen Creed. Nicene Creed under your Greek category. Nicene Creed. Now, what we're about to get into now is what brought about the Nicene Creed. Why did the Nicene Creed even fucking happen in the first place? There were three reasons. They had to, it's supposed to be chronologized, Christianized. They had to come up with the divine nature of God the Son and his relationship to God the Father. They had to come up with, man, oh boy, this is crazy. They had to come up with it. Watch this. Osiris and Horus.
According to Britannica,
this is what was happening in the Council of Nicaea. Because remember, they already got the picture of your boy already. They already got the picture already. This is the Holy Trinity right here. I'm going to show you through these council meetings how they removed Isis out of the Trinity. So now in the Council of Nicaea, they're trying to chronologicalize Father and Son. How do we spin this shit? How do we sell it to the population? How do we do this? You're going to have some people that's going to oppose this. You're going to have some individuals that had opposition against the idea of the Greeks at this council meeting. You had a lot of oppositions. Arianism. Write down Arianism on your second piece of paper. You should have time, space, and who. The who is Arius. The time is 4th century. The space is we're still in Egypt. We have not left Egypt. We have not left Egypt. That's the space. This is called Arianism. And basically, in Arianism, they said that you can't do that. See, Arianism was much like Islam. This is the 4th century now. Arianism is Christian heresy that declares that Christ is not truly divine, but a created being. According to Alexander Prosper, Arius, the 4th century, God alone is immutable in self-existence. And the Son is not God, but a creature with a beginning. This is what they said back then, when they was trying to amalgamize and create the idea of this creature. This is why Jesus said, be careful that no one fools you. Many will be deceived because I am not the Christ. This title of the Christ have been bestowed upon something else called Ptolemy I gave you the Christ. And this supposed Christ is known as Serapis Christos. Serapis Christos is the supposed Christ, not me. So something called Arianism. This was a big situation because you had Arianism. I'm going to show you what's called the Great Schism, Dantinus, schismatic controversy. See, the community, the people at large begin to talk and begin to notice, like, they trying to give us a whole nother situation. And groups of individuals were not with that shit. Remember, this is the Greeks trying to convert, amalgamize. This is just the first Nicene Council. We haven't even talked about Constantine. We haven't talked about the fact that Constantine gave up his donation, and gave the donation to Constantine, I'm going to show you in a second, was his ecclesiastical authority. With all the authority, all the might, all the power that Constantine had, he gave it up and gave it over to a pope by the name of African bishop by the name of Sylvester I. And when Sylvester I accepted that donation of Constantine, that's when the Greeks got busy on creating Christendom, like real busy creating it. Like Nicene I, Nicene II, Council of Ephesus, Council of Chalcedon. The Council of Placidus was prior to canonize the book. And we haven't even got to the real book yet. The real book don't even get printed to 1463 in Württemberg, Germany by Johann Gutenberg and Johannes Fuss. We haven't got to the Bible yet. We haven't got to King James yet. We're nowhere near King James. The Roman Empire still rules everything right now. Fuck a king. They care less about a king. The kings were in the church pocket at this particular time. They don't care about no king. So there's no King James Bible. There's no Douay Bible. There's no Bibles yet. Before I finish this live, I'm going to show you the authors and ones who published the works and transliterated the Latin, your Latin category, and your Hebrew category, and your Greek category. We're going to fill those categories up in a second. But write down Arianism. This is why they had the Council of Nicaea. People know about the Council of Nicaea, but can't tell you why it happened. Arianism. That's one reason it happened. They said you can't do that. You can't take this creature and turn him into something else. We're not going to go for it. It's basically what Arianism is, that we're not going to go for it. I want to dig into a little bit more though. Arianism. Arianism is defined in the early branch of Christianity that held that Jesus Christ was not one with the. See how they put Jesus Christ in there? You see how they slide that shit in there? And if you were just to pull the shit up on your own, you would be fooled to think that this shit is real. It says Arianism defined as an early branch of Christianity that held that Jesus Christ was not one with God the Father, but instead just created from God and a holy man. Why would they put Jesus' name right there? Knowing good and goddamn well in that same time frame they're talking about right there for Arianism, the letter J was not invented, first of all. And at no point do they refer to him as Jesus Christ at all. The word Christos, Christ, he was called the Messiah, the Mashiach. And I'm talking about the time of Arianism. And this time frame, there was not even a conversation about a guy named Jesus Christ. There was no letter J yet. That came way later. But if you're not familiar with time and space, this is how they fuck you up too. So let's continue. Why was Arianism controversial? Arius' teaching reduced the Son to a demigod. This is all wise, right, and exact right here. Arius was like Dr. York. The good brother Arius was like Dr. York back then. In the way of knowledge. Arian said, that creature y'all just made, and I'm gonna call it a created creature, because that's the only thing man can make is a creature. Man can't make nothing but creatures. A man can't make a giraffe, a man can't make an elephant. He can make a version of it or a creature version of it, but man can't make shit. Arius said the teaching reduces Jesus to a demigod, reintroduces polytheism since worship of the Son was not abandoned, and undermine the Christian concept of redemption, since only he who was truly God can be deemed to have reconciled humanity to Godhead. Arius was not with it. He had a whole group of people who believed the same way he believed, that you cannot come in here and give us this Jesus character and tell us that he's the Son of God. We don't follow that shit. We don't believe it, and we're not going to deal with it. This is what brought about the Council of Nicaea. And Constantine had no authority to call a council meeting. He presided over the council meeting. Let's be clear about that. Let's deal with another word called monotheistic. That's not the word I want to deal with. Hold on. Diaphysitic.
According to Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, diabetes is a chronic.
This should give me.
According to NHS, dialysis is a procedure to remove waste products and excess fluid from the blood when the kidneys stop working properly.
There we go.
It often involves.
That's not either. Hold on, y'all. These words are crazy as hell. Diaphysite. Okay, there we go. Diaphysite. I gotta find this word. Hold on. Diaphysite. Diaphysite. Hold on. There we go. There we go. All right. Thank y'all for being patient. The word, it's a crazy ass word. So please write this word down so we ain't got to go through that ever again in life. We can just go right to it and save it. Diaphysitic. Write down diaphysitic. I'm walking you to the truth. Diaphysitic. See? Christology. What is a we're going to talk about a myophysitic too. But for now, diaphysitic. And I'm bringing up the diaphysitic word because out of Arianism, or the brother Arius, who argue against the fact that y'all can't sit here and create this thing. This is a created creature y'all are making. It's not real. Serapis Christos is a created creature. We already know where it comes from. You're not going to make this thing into a physical thing, which is also called, the word we talked about earlier is what? Iconocladism and anthropomorphism. See, Jesus was anthropomorphized. He was created out of nothing. And iconocladism, which is the breaking of an image. This is the image they're giving you. Diaphysitic, from the Greek. This is under your Greek category. Under your Greek category, write down the word diaphysitic. Diaphysitic. Diaphysite, they call them. From the Greek, diaphysite is the Christological position that Jesus Christ is one person of one substance and one hypostasis. Hypostasis. What does this word mean? Because I get to a word, I have to know what it means if I go on. That really didn't give me what I wanted right there. Jesus Christ is of one person, of one substance, and one hypostasis, with two distinct, inseparable natures, divine and human. It is related to the doctrine of hyposecunic. Those who insist that the two natures formula refer to diaphysites. Development of diaphysite Christianology was the gradual diaphysite tradition and its complex terminology. It is a complex term. Were finally formulated as a result of a long Christological debate that were consistent during the 4th and 5th century. Between the 4th and 5th century, y'all, we're talking about the council meetings, the Council of Chalcedon, and then the Council of Nicaea. Here we go, right here. Diaphysitum as position stands in the opposition view of monophysite. Now, a monophysite, this is diaphysite. A monophysite states that the person of incarnate word, there's only one with nature and divine. The doctrine of Jesus having one divine nature and monophysism. The doctrine that Christ was both divine and human, but in one nature. Diaphysitic believe that two natures are completely perfectly united in one person, and the blah, blah, blah. They're making the shit up as they go along. It's being made up. And it all came from Serapis Christos. Please keep Serapis Christos in your mind. They're trying to figure out the nature and the cause. This is what's happening. So you had a split. You had diaphysitics, you had monophysites. The monophysites believed in the one nature, the diaphysitics believed in the two natures. Okay? Then you had Arianism. Arianism flat out said you cannot make that created creature a deity. This is what's happening. This is what's going on in this time frame. Let's go up a little bit in history. So we just covered this creature right here, Serapis Christos. The hot topic of the evening is, what is the nature of this thing? Can we make this nature one with the Father Osiris and be his own deity at the same time? What did Jesus say he was? Jesus said, I am just a man. This created creature has nor mother nor father. It doesn't. Oh, but wait, watch this. Watch this. Watch when this creature gets his mother and father. Watch this right here. Not Nicaea. Let's go to the Council of Ephesus in 431. This is called the Council of Ephesus. The Council of Ephesus. Now, remember earlier we dealt with Arianism. We dealt with the diaphysitic. We dealt with the monophysites. Now, this is something else. This is called the Nestorian controversy. This is a whole other situation. because it took a long time to convince a lot of people. It took a whole lot of time to convince a whole lot of people what they were trying to convince people of. And people were not really with that shit. They were not feeling this fact that they were trying to make this created creature known as Serapis Christos into this deity that we know today is Jesus Christ. It was a long and hard road, but they got it there, as we can well see. They got it there. But today we're gonna learn, and we're gonna learn how to break that spell too. Here we go. This is called Nestorius. And Nestorius had a whole controversy. Nestorius teaching became the root controversy when he publicly challenged the long title of the Theotokos, which is God bearer, for Mary. He suggested that the title denied Christ of full humanity, arguing instead that two persons, diaphysite. So basically, at this point in time, Nestorius, who is an African bishop, publicly says you cannot make this thing a mother and make the mother be the God of the mother. Of the entity. Meaning, if Mary is if Mary is the mother of God, then what is she to give birth to God? Nestorius teaching. So you have Arianism, and write down Nestorius, please. Nestorius. Arianism and Nestorians. So these people were definitely against the idea of creating. Let's find out what the Council of Ephesus was, though. Because we all know about, they call him a heretic too, basically. Anytime you didn't go along to get along with the situation, and Nestorius basically rejected the traditional doctrine of incarnation by implication, denying the hypostatic union of human and divine nature and the one divine person of Jesus. This denial was categorized by notable rejection, the title Theotokos. Again, Nestorius was against the idea that they were about to appoint the mother of God at the Council of Ephesus. And they gave Mary the title Theotokos. Who did Mary replace, I wonder? I'm going to show you. Don't worry about it. See, in order to really learn, y'all got to want this information. Y'all got to be hungry for this shit. You got to want to just keep digging and keep digging. Now, these are all African bishops, by the way. These are all African bishops. 431. This is in 431 AD. In 431 AD, the area known as Europe had not even known about this shit yet. Don't let the fact I'm talking about the Romans and this is not Rome and Greece are not Europe. We haven't even got to the the medieval time yet, the Dark Age. We haven't even got. We're at least 600-700 years from the first war happening. They're still trying to create the idea of which all of us believe today, that Jesus was in the manger, Mary is his mother, Joseph is his stepdaddy, and this entity in the sky is his real daddy. They are literally making this shit up. Literally. They have no artifacts. They didn't have archaeologists in 431 AD. They didn't have anybody who could dig up anything to prove what they're saying at this point in time. In fact, the language it was even in, the Bible has not even been written to be translated yet. There's no book in 431 AD that says any of this shit yet. And what book they did have, they canonized that book at the Council of Locida. They already took out the manuscripts. They already made Sunday the day of worship and not Saturday. They've already tampered with the books that they had already. Remember, when Ptolemy came into Egypt in 332 BC, he took down all of the temples in Egypt. What books he did not take, he destroyed. The valuable books, the ones he thought were valuable, he took all those books and put them inside what was called the Library of Alexander. Those are the only books they had. And guess what? They could not read hieroglyphics. They could not read Meta-Neter, which nobody has deciphered in Meta-Neter to today. And the Meta-Neter is an Egyptian form of writing. So when the Greeks saw this shit, they didn't have nobody to interpret this shit. They just got it and put it, they felt it was important. But these council meetings they're starting to have, they're trying to figure out how they're going to retell this story and make 1 billion people believe this shit years to come. Here's how. Write down the Council of Ephesus. I'm sorry, y'all. Council of Ephesus. Write that down. Ephesus. Write it down. Let not the Council of Nicaea be the only council meeting you can repeat out your mouth. This is the Council of Ephesus. This is after the Nicene Council too. Now, up to this point, all they have is what's called the Nicene Creed. These bishops are now going a step further, trying to create. See the picture right here they got in the background right here? See the picture they got in the background right there? You see that shit? This is when? 431 AD. This is Virgin Mary and the child Jesus, they say. Watch this. Which most of us already know already. The Black Madonna and Child photo. Uh-oh. This supposed photo, it's the same photo they have in the background at the council meeting in 431 AD. This is the same picture right here in the background they have. Y'all see it right here? How did that picture make it from 431 AD all the way through now and become the Virgin Mary? Because this picture was not the Virgin Mary. That was not the picture of the Virgin Mary. Do y'all remember where they got the pictures from? Can anybody in the comment tell me, where would you think the Greeks got their photographs from, the idea from? Where would they get the idea from? This is 431 AD. Where would they get the idea from? Samuel. Samuel said Egypt. Mirrors. I know what you're talking about, El. Islam. Egypt. What picture they got in Egypt look like that, man? I don't remember seeing a picture like that in Egypt. Watch this. Same picture. This is the picture they gave y'all. Remember, Ptolemy was in Egypt. Remember, he took Apis, Osiris. You thought they stopped right there with those two deities? No, they took Isis, Horus. This is the script they took. And Isis is supposed the mother of Horus, who is a god. They now are making Mary the mother of God. This ain't nothing new, family. Ain't nothing new. The Council of Ephesus was a council of Christian bishops convened in Ephesus, modern day Turkey, in 431 AD. The Roman Emperor Theodosius II. And the third council meeting, an effort to attain consensus in the church through assembly representing all of Christendom. This is Christendom. The conquesting through this made up as false teaching. It's called Christendom. Christendom. Not the spread of Christianity. No. This is conquest. This is what we're going to get into around like part 4, part 5. We're talking about the army of God. You know, he has an army. And I'm going to show you who God is. Because this is trying to get you to assimilate that Jesus is God. And there's somebody on earth right now in 2024 that's proclaiming to be Jesus incarnate, known as the Pope. The Pope is known as the vicar of Christ. And I can show you. This is Christendom. This is why they put out so many ecclesiastical authorities, ecclesiastical mandates called papal bulls, the Intercaterra Cavina, and so on and so forth, and other papal bulls that were put out by these individuals claiming to have the authority through rulership and dominion over earth. The whole goddamn map. The whole map. The whole map is what they got. All of it. They took it all. Oh, man. It's so much, man. It's so much, boy. Family. It's so much, and I'm trying to do a good job of disseminating it, man, but it's so much I got to tell y'all, man. It's like a shitload of information that's dealing with this, man. We're gonna do our best to deal with it, though. We'll do our best to deal with it. So we had a Council of Ephesus. It was an asserted effort to assimilate everybody to agree. Everybody who represented the whole situation of Christendom. They confirmed the original Nicene Creed. The confirmation. Pay attention now. It's going to go real quick. The Council of Ephesus was a council of Christian bishops convened in Ephesus, northern-day Turkey, in an effort to attain the consensus in the church through the assembly representing all of Christendom. Those are the Coptic bishops you're talking about. There are no European bishops at this time. One more time for y'all niggas in the back. There are zero European bishops at this time. These are all African Coptic bishops. That's why the fucking thing is in Turkey, which is still Africa. Last time I checked. This council meeting didn't take place nowhere up in Europe, up in Yorkshire, didn't take place nowhere in Rome, didn't take place nowhere in Greece. It took place right there in Africa because it had to stay in Africa. It had to stay right where it was. These are African bishops who are doing this shit. Because I can show you what a European bishop got there. Let's go there. Fuck it, let's go. I won't talk about it no more. Let me just start showing y'all. The Hagia Sophia. Here is where the European bishops got their information from. You see that? In 537, this is when Europeans began to understand and begin to teach out of the Hagia Sophia. The Hagia Sophia is the Church of Holy Wisdom. This is the first Christian church for Europeans. This is the first one. It's called the Hagia Sophia. The current structure was built by Byzantine Emperor, the Byzantine Emperor, known as Justinian I. His wife was named Theodora. Justinian I is a Christian cathedral of Constantinople, which is Turkey, northern Africa, by the Byzantine Empire between 532 and 537 BC, AD, and was designed by Greek holy jokers. It was formerly called the Church of God's Holy Wisdom. I like that shit for y'all. The Hagia Sophia was no, let me blow it up. I want to make it big so y'all can see this. Oh, no excuses. Hold on. Right there. It's called the Hagia Sophia. Write that down under Latin. In your categories, under your Latin category, under your Latin category, write down this word. I'm going to go to the top so you can see it real quick. Hold on. Hagia Sophia. Write it down. And the Hagia Sophia was the first church for Europeans. First university for Europeans. It was known as the Church of Holy Wisdom. Why was it called the Church of Holy Wisdom? Why was the Hagia Sophia called the Church of Holy Wisdom? Remember I told you those Greeks came into Egypt and took all the manuscripts? Well, the ones they could translate anyway, the ones that was written in the Demotic form of manuscript. They took those manuscripts and put them in what's called the Library of Alexander. So the Church of Holy Wisdom, what do you suspect information they had inside this church in 537 AD? Which is a short time after those council meetings. They're trying to figure it out. What manuscripts you think were housed in this building called the Hagia Sophia? So when I'm showing you those pictures of the council meetings, those are all African bishops, Coptic priests. Because we're not talking about any other place in Africa but Egypt when it comes to the thought of Christianity. You might argue and say Ethiopia, but that's still Egypt. Ethiopia is still Egypt. Ethiopia is more Egypt than Egypt is Egypt. The individuals who came out of Nubia. See, don't get me fucking started, because a lot of Hotep niggas don't even acknowledge the Nubian Empire. The empires that gave birth to Egypt. By the time those black folks came into Egypt before those pyramids, they came into Egypt with that information. They already had the knowledge. They already had they had the geometry. They had it already. Egypt was just the last great frontier for the culture, but the first great frontier for Europeans. I'm gonna say it again. Egypt was the last great frontier of Africa. That was the last thing they did, was Egypt. You thought Egypt was the first? No, they have shit that's older than Egypt in Africa. Way older. Hell, we got shit in America that's older than in Egypt. But the point of the matter is, this became the first Christian church for Europeans. It's called the Hagia Sophia, the Church of Holy Wisdom. Prior to that, there was no church. Zero. Fact check that shit. I dare you. Let's go back. Then we have the Council of Ephesus, 431. The Council of Ephesus, they made Mary the Theotokos. Let me find it for you real quick. They basically made Mary the Theotokos. The Theotokos is called the Mother of God. They also did more canons. Here we go, right here. Let's see what they did at the Council of Ephesus real quick. Hold on, let me pause my shit. What did they do at the Council of Ephesus? I'm going to start right here. The council denounced Nestorius. Remember, we wrote down Nestorius. We know what he was about. Teaching an erroneous and decree that Jesus was one person and two separate persons, yet possessing a human and divine nature. This is what they had to decree. This is called an ecclesiastical authority. They wrote down, hope y'all getting this shit, man. They wrote it down, y'all. They wrote it down and they agreed on it. That's all. There's no proof behind it. There's no tangible evidence that Jesus is 2 and 3 of the Father. They literally chat GTP'd this shit and gave it to us. So when people say, oh yeah, I know about the council meeting, ask them what the fuck happened at these council meetings and make them show you. If people are not showing y'all information, stop even it. Do not be fooled. Many will come to you and deceive a lot of y'all. I'm showing you the information. Showing. And I'm walking you. See, ain't nobody gonna walk with y'all through the information like I'm gonna walk. I'm walking y'all through it. I'm walking you through it. The Council of Nicaea, the Council of Chalcedon. Let's go to the Council of Chalcedon and come back to Ephesus real quick. Write this council meeting down, please. All these council meetings are leading up to the creation of Christendom. All these council meetings, we have to talk about the creation story of this creature known as Serapis Christos into the creature known as Jesus Christ, into the ideology of a story of his mother. It shit is all building. These council meetings are building. We're going to talk about Constantine and what his contribution. In hoc signet vince, in this sign we shall conquer. What sign are they conquering in? What sign are Christians conquering in? The sign of the cross, bro. Sign of the cross. Watch this. Hope it come up. Here we go, right here. That's it. Crap. I had it pulled up earlier. Hold on. There it is right here. This is the sign they rule in. In hoc signet vince. This is the sign they're ruling in. I'm trying to teach y'all up until this point right here, but we haven't got to this part yet. We haven't got to this part yet. I'm showing you the creation of it. Now, what they did, young scholar Payola always on it. The symbol, the galactic symbol for Earth. Again, let me just show y'all. This is the galactic symbol of Earth, a circle with a cross in it. Now, the triangle upside, the inverted triangle with the line is the material Earth, like the dirt Earth. That's one of the elements. That's an elemental sign. The galactic sign for Earth is a cross inside of a circle. That cross inside of a circle is also known as the 4 cardinal points, or known as the four cardinal virtues: temperance, prudence, and fortitude. It's also known as the 4 deacons, also known as east, west, south, north, all that kind of shit. The compass. What they did, under Christendom, they elevated the cross on top of Earth and they rule it. They took the same symbol, pulled the cross out of the globe and set it on top of the globe to show dominionship. That symbol you see in front of you shows dominion of Earth. Who has dominion of Earth? Watch this. Watch this. Watch this. I mean, I don't have to make this shit up. Hold on. Oh, I did the wrong thing. My bad. We're going to something else. 2 Corinthians 4:4. Who is the God of this world? Who is the God of this world? Who is the God of this world? I just showed y'all the signal. My bad, my bad. I just showed y'all the signal and sign of earth. And if it says he ruleth, this is the ruler of earth. Watch this. It's Satan. But watch this. The Pope stands in the place of Jesus himself as the vicar of Christ on earth. The Pope is Christ on earth. I just showed you the creation of Christ, which is not Jesus of Nazareth. This is not who we're talking about. This is not who we even going to believe, because he already told you people are going to be fooling y'all, and they're going to be misleading y'all, and they're going to be lying to y'all. The Pope himself is Christ on earth. Did y'all know that? Did y'all know that? The Pope stands in place of Jesus himself as the vicar of Christ on earth. And who's the God of this world? Satan. What is the Pope's job? To stand in as an avatar for Satan. As long as y'all been going to church, y'all grandmama ain't never told y'all this. The pastor ain't never told you this. The deacon bowl, choir practice, choir rehearsal, Wednesday night Bible study, revival for 2 weeks. Nobody has ever told y'all that the Pope is actually Jesus on earth. It's the Pope. He is Jesus. That's why I'm trying to disconnect y'all mind from this Jesus Christ character by one, showing you that it was a created creature by the name of Serapis Christos. And it went through an entire curriculum board, if you will, to be created into something that was real. They gave you an image, which is called iconoclasm. That's the word, iconoclasm. They broke the image. That image was the same image of Serapis Christos. They straightened his hair out, combed his beard, and gave you the same deity. So now when you say that Jesus is one with the Father, who is the Father? The Father is Osiris, because he is. Serapis is one with the Father, Osiris. He and the Father are one and the same. That's true. Serapis Christos and Osiris are one and the same. Facts. Nobody can get to the Father but through him. That's also a fact. They have given you a replacement, Christ. You're believing. Those who you believe and used to believe, and we know who believe in our family, they're thinking that they're giving their energy over to this entity. And it's really a created creature. The Pope is also Satan. Somebody's keeping up. Somebody's fucking keeping up. Thank you for that segue. Thank you for that segue. Thank you. Thank you. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. This is the infamous Pope Francis, as we know, right? Let's see. We got the most wicked popes in here. You got corrupt popes in there. You got the Antichrist popes in there. You got one pope said, "I am the devil." Pope Francis did recently that he is the devil compared to Saint John Paul II. but nothing reveals satanic learning. Pope Francis said he was the devil. That's a quote. That's what he said. This is not what I'm saying. This is what he said. And there's shit tons of satanic symbolism throughout the Catholic Church, because we understand the Catholic Church is an amalgamation. Look at this shit. They got statues and shit in there. Got a kufi on his head. The Holy Roman Ecclesiastical Authority staff. You see that cross he got right here? That's not even a cross. Let me see if I can blow it up for y'all real quick. Right here. Wait till we start learning about the armies of God. Remember that symbol right there. This is the vice general for Satan. Watch this shit. Watch it. Remember that cross right there. Now, I'm going to do this for the sake of time, because we didn't even get into all the juice. It's just so much shit, really, family, to get into. Remember I told you about the donation to Constantine? The donation to Constantine was that stick. The one you saw the Pope had in his hand. It was a gesture of the transfer. The donation to Constantine was the great supposed transfer of authority. Let's read the whole thing real quick. The donation to Constantine, Roman imperial decree by which 4th century Emperor Constantine the Great supposedly transfer authority over Rome to the western part of the Roman Empire to the Pope. That Pope name was Pope Sylvester I. That Pope name was Pope Sylvester I, an African Coptic bishop. That's who that was. That's exactly who that was. So, donation of Constantine. Constantine gives up his ecclesiastical authority over to the African bishop, Sylvester. Constantine is then baptized into Christianity by way of baptism. And this is what Constantine said. In hoc signo vince, conveniently translate into the English, in this sign thou shalt conquer. This began the conquest, the conquering Christendom by way of Christian doctrine, by way of false fucking teachings, as we just saw. They created a whole creature out of thin air. They made up a whole being out of thin air and call that being Serapis Christos. They created a whole situation out of nothing. They gave you this shit right here, this amalgamated situation. As we link in the afterlife and transformation, Serapis became known as the Redeemer God and Savior, Soter, who granted believers eternal life. Correspondence during the reign of Herod in 117 to 138 CE seems to conflate references to Serapis to those of the new Messiah, Jesus Christ. That's the new Messiah, they said. Jesus Christ is Serapis Christos. That's why Jesus said, they will try to fool y'all and tell y'all that I'm the Christ. Do not believe them. Do not believe them. Do not believe them, Jesus said. This is touregypt.net. This is interesting right here. Serapis Christos. Oh, this is really small. It is basically given the same account that we already talked about already. The worship of Serapis. He had 300,000 books in his library. The temple made it plain have resembled that of the famous Serapeum at Memphis, but part were richly painted with gills and possessed a fine library which said contained over 300,000 or perhaps 42,000 volumes. The library was actually annexed to the Great Library of Alexander, hence known as the Daughter Library. They had 300,000 books, some 42,000 volumes. There it is right there. That's called the Serapeum Temple. That's where all the Christians went in BC time, before Jesus was even born. You had Christians. You don't believe me? Let's look it up. Worshippers of Serapis Christos was known as Christians.
According to World History Encyclopedia, some ancient writers and historians seem to have confused a reference in a letter from Emperor Hadrian regarding devotees of Serapis calling themselves bishops of Christ, with adherents actually referring to themselves as bishops of the Savior, Serapis, as Christians had nothing to do with the cult of Serapis.
You're going to get stuff like that. Let's dig into it. In Alexander, he relates, those who worship Serapis are in fact Christians, and those who call themselves bishops of Christ are in fact devotees of Serapis. The Four Tyrants, Volume 8. Let's keep going. The followers of Serapis had been called bishops of Christ, and as Christians, meaning the followers of Christ. In this case, followers of Serapis Christos. The religion of Serapis has been around since 323 BC. Before Jesus of Nazareth laid his big head in a manger, Christians were already around. The word Christ had applied to Serapis Christos, who was the redeemed Savior. The Council of Nicaea, the Council of Nicaea II, the Council of Chalcedon, the Council of Ephesus were all put together to create the manuscript of how we're going to go about making this thing a reality. That's all that was. Once we got the reality part together, because remember, this is a fucking script. This is a script, and every script needs great actors. But first, every script needs great playwriters. Who's going to write the script for this book? Because now we need a Bible. Everything we just covered and talked about for that last hour with the council meetings and Serapis Christos, and there were no books. There were no Bibles. There were no Geneva Bible. There were no King James Bible. There were no Douay Bible. There were no Quran. There were no books. So now that we got the council meetings out the way, now that we made people believe that Jesus is one with the Father, which is known as the Homosius Creed, and we have burned or killed all heretics that say otherwise. Because remember now, the Roman Catholic Church trying to take over the whole world. They got the globe with the cross on top. They're trying to conquer the whole world through Christendom. But now we need manuscripts. Now we need scripts. Who's going to write the script? Now we need playwriters. This is Desiderius Erasmus. Under your Latin column, write him down. And go to your next page. Under your time, space, and who, under the who, write Desiderius Erasmus. In your time column, write 1516. Under your location column, write Europe. Notice now, we in the 1500s. We don't left 332 BC. We don't left 431 AD. That's the council meeting. We don't left 325 AD. We're now in the 1500s, and we're just about to get the script for the religion we call Christianity now. We're just now about to get the fucking script. I'm not going to argue with anybody about the Vulgate and the Septuagint and the Torah, any of those manuscripts. I'm not going to argue with you about that, because I just showed you at the very interim, there were over 42,000 volumes, over 300 plus, 400 plus thousand manuscripts housed in the Library of Alexander dealing with this newfound religion called Christianity. At least a contributor to it by way of these African Coptic bishops called Melkite Coptic Egyptians. But now we have to have a script. Y'all got, this guy wrote down Erasmus. Now, I'm going to show you Erasmus. I'm going to show you Miles Coverdale. I'm going to show you Jacob Van Laspel. I'm going to show you John Wycliffe. And I'm going to show you a couple more characters who helped to transliterate. But remember your categories, you have Latin and Greek. So I'm going to give you which ones did the Latin, which ones did the Greek. Then we're going to go finally into 1535 and go into what's called the King James Version. I thought it was 16. No. King James never wrote shit. If you're not familiar with the Protestant movement, if you're not familiar with Martin Luther, if you're not familiar with the fact that the Puritans wanted nothing to do with that new Bible, they were just fine with the Geneva Bible. And when the new Bible got published, which was the King James Version of the Bible, that's when France came, what was called the Douay Bible. And then Europe fired back again with the New Testament, this time adding the book of John. The shit been going on since the council meetings and before then. Remember, you had the Diophysites and Miaphysites. They haven't gone nowhere. They're still around. Words like heretic, words like what's the word I want to look for now besides heretic? I'll think of it in a second. But heretic was a real strong word. If you spoke against the church back then, they would burn your ass up with hot oil. See, Erasmus and the boys start writing these books around the same time or a little bit later at something called purgatory. It's the idea of going to hell. So those who didn't want to convert to this newfound religion, they just scared the fuck out of them. They scared them to death. Telling stories of purgatory. Now, the fact that Desiderius Erasmus published the Nova Instrumentum in 1516 has nothing to do with the fact that the first Bible, European-wise, was printed in 1463 in Woodbridge, Germany by Johannes Gutenberg, who took a loan from Johannes Fuss. Johannes Fuss took the shit back to Europe after Johannes Gutenberg couldn't pay for it. That's the 1400s. We're now at 1516. This is the transliteration out of one language into another language by Europeans who just learned how to fucking read and write. Just learned it yesterday, literally. Just learned how to put shoes on. Remember who I'm talking about. Remember who I'm talking about. Desiderius Erasmus. Let's see who he was real quick. Desiderius Erasmus of Rotterdam was a Dutch Christian humanist, a Catholic theologian, educationalist, satirist, philosopher. Through his vast number of, let's get into it. Vast numbers of translations, books, essays, prayers, and letters. He is considered the most influential thinker of Northern Renaissance and one of the major figures in Dutch Western culture. He was an important figure in classical scholarship. He wrote in a spontaneous, copious nature of Latin style. So beside Desiderius Erasmus, guess what he's going to do? He's going to transliterate the Bible into Latin. So under your Latin category, Desiderius Erasmus. Should already be there. Because see, I'm making this distinction because the Bible was transliterated a couple different times. And when I say the Bible, I'm not talking about the entire book, because we have to know the Bible is two different books, family. It's Old Testament, which is called the Torah, and the Angel, which is the Greek. Desiderius Erasmus, for the first time in history, will put both books under the same cover in 1535. That's the first time it ever happened, according to human history, by this fellow right here. Now, Desiderius Erasmus was an ex-priest turned playwright. He was a playwright. One of his homeboys was Sir Francis Bacon. Shakespeare. Literally. Did Shakespeare have influence on helping to shape the Bible? According to history, he hung out with him. This is facts. Watch this. As a Catholic priest developing humanic techniques for working, he prepared the new Latin and Greek edition to the New Testament, which raised questions that would be influent in the Reformation of the Counter-Reformation. He also wrote other books. Let's back up some. He prepared, it's called the Nova Instrumentum. Can y'all see that? Nova Instrumentum. Just click on it. Write that down. The Nova Instrumentum, later called Nova Testamentum. The word Nova is Latin for new. Okay, so if you never heard the word Nova, it's new. So they're saying New Testament. Nova Testamentum. The first print of the New Testament of the Greek to be published. It was prepared by Desiderius Erasmus in 1466 to 1535, and then printed by John Forbin in 1460 to 1527 of Basil. Sorry. 5 editions were published in 1516, 1519, 1522, 1527, and 1536. Though written for theologians, not the masses. The first rendition of the Bible was not written for common folks in Europe, because the common folks in Europe could not read nor write at this time. The common folks of Europe could not read nor write in 15 nothing. One more time for the people in the background. The common people of Europe could not read or write. The common folk, the everyday Joe Smo, couldn't read or write no way. So what happened with these versions, clergymen would do what was called florigiize or embellish. And Jesus was hot and he was sweating and he needed water, all that crap. Because the common layman couldn't read or write. Much like today in church, the common folks can't read the Bible for real. They just go by, they're there to hear the stories. They're there to be entertained. Florigiizing, embellishing. So this goes on to say that 5 editions were published in 1516, 19, 1520, 27, 36. Though written for theologians, not the masses, it is estimated that 300,000 copies of the New Testament were printed in his lifetime. The first edition was in 1516, as I told y'all. The Nova Testamentum provided Erasmus' version of the Latin Vulgate. Now, under your Latin category, write the word Vulgate. Under your Latin category, write the word Vulgate. Vulgate. Let me load up for you real quick. Vulgate. The first edition was 1516. See, this is how you talk to people, y'all. For those y'all still tapped in, appreciate y'all, man. Hit the subscribe button for me, family. Hit the subscribe button. Hit that bell. Share this shit. Spread the word. Let people know what time it is. Comment in the comment section. Even when this is off, man, share this shit. Make this shit go viral. We turning up. I'm doing like 5-6 episodes of this shit. It ain't even getting to all the nooks and the crannies. I'm just doing this is just the overview of the outline. This is just the overview. Just the overview. 15, 16. This is how you talk to people when people want to get into a debate, a philosophical comment. You put them in time and space. The next time anybody mentioned anything about a Bible, you ask them, are you familiar with Desiderius Erasmus in 1516 creating what was called the Nova Testamentum? And you watch their face. The fact that you use the word Desiderius Erasmus, the fact that you're saying Nova Instrumentum, probably already threw them off already. But you know, under your Latin category, these are Latin words. Nova, which means new, because now you're learning the language. Vulgate. What is the Vulgate? We're going to deal with the Vulgate and a couple of things. We're going to wrap it up. Vulgate. This is the Vulgate Bible. How many of y'all have ever read the Vulgate Bible? Which Bible do y'all follow? What does the Vulgate Bible even fucking say? Who knows? Tell me. Because now we're going to go back to what's called the Septuagint, which is older than Vulgate. And we haven't even discussed the other Bibles coming up out of Europe at this time. Remember, they had the created creature, Serapis Christos. They argued in council meetings for a couple hundred years on how they're going to spin the fucking story. Now they have to come up with a legitimate textbook to substantiate everything that they made up. Now they have to come up with the fucking curriculum. And all the while they're working on the curriculum, which is the Bible, or the books of the Bible, they're also indoctrinating people everywhere that cross goes. In hoc signet vince, in this time we shall conquer. How did they conquer all those people in North America, Central America, South America, throughout Africa, and throughout the diaspora of the world? How did these Europeans just pull up on these niggas and just take over? They did not pull up with swords. They didn't pull up with swords or batons and fucking guns, and they didn't pull up with that. They pulled up with the clergy. They learned a long time ago that these dark-skinned folks, these brown-skinned and dark-skinned folks are deeply seated in belief. Whether they went to Brazil and they saw what they were worshiping, they went to the Yucatan Peninsula, they was worshiping something. They went to goddamn what's called Mexico today, worshiping something. They hit Suffolk, Virginia back then. Those Indians were worshiping something. Everywhere they went, dark-skinned people were stomping and jumping around fire and worshiping something. So they knew they had to come with a whole other fucking tactic. Oh, you just wait till we get to the Septuagint. And we haven't even got to the Douay Bible or the King Henry Bible yet. You think Christians know what they're talking about? I just showed and proved that Serapis Christos is really Jesus Christ. I showed y'all a week ago that there's 4 Jesus in the Bible by name. I'm showing you now that these books were literally put together. The story was literally put together. The shit was literally made up. And because y'all belie Eve everything, Vulgate, also called Bilio Vulgata, sometimes referred to as the Latin Vulgate. In the late 4th century, Latin translation of the Bible. The Vulgate largely is the work of Jerome, who in 382 had been commissioned by Pope Damasus I to revise the Vitinus Litany Gospel used by the Roman Church. Later, in his own intuitive, Jerome extended his work of the revision and translation to include most of the books of the Bible. The Vulgate became progressively adopted as the Bible within the Western Church. Over succeeding centuries, it eventually eclipsed the Vetus Latina. By the 13th century, it had taken over and formed a formal version of the designation Vestros Vulgatus, the version commonly used, a Vulgata for short. The Vulgate also contains some of the Vetus Latinus translation that Jerome did not work on. The Vulgate was to become the Catholic Church official Poglermy Latin version of the Bible in the 16th, whatever this should say, 16 Vulgate, 1590. Then it had the new Vulgate in 1979 with the pious cross on it. We'll talk about these symbols too, the different crosses and arrows and what these really mean right here. I'm going to show you the same symbol on the walls of Egypt. All right. At this point in time, we know everything came out of Egypt. So that's not even we're not going to talk about that no more. At this point in time, we already know. The Council of Trent, another council meeting to stop the protest Reformation. This was Martin Luther start kicking up shit. Not the black Martin Luther King. This was a whole other Martin Luther who opposed the same thing. Oh, here we go. The term Vulgate is used to designate in Latin Bible only since 16th century. An example of use of the word in the sense at the time of its title, a 1538 edition by Latin Bible by Erasmus. Now, I'm not going to attempt to say all that shit because it's in Latin. So we got the Vulgate Bible. Everybody got that? And we got Nova Instrumentum, 1516. And we should have Desiderius Erasmus written down also. I'm walking y'all through the history of it. So you have no excuses when you have a conversation with a believer, a Christian, or anybody want to have a debate with y'all. I'm preparing y'all for war. And this is how you get through the BS. Get through all that barbershop talk. This is how you get through it. All right, so we got Desiderius Erasmus next. And Desiderius Erasmus was a homosexual, and he was excommunicated from the church because of his homosexuality. I want to point that out. Not that it matters, but it's pretty interesting. He was excommunicated due to the fact that he believed in same-sex situations. Who else we got? Let's go to Miles Coverdale. Right now, Miles Coverdale. He ain't the most handsomest looking person, but important person in this conversation. Miles Coverdale. Miles Coverdale was a man who loved all his life a singular uprighteous record of his tomb. He was also deemed a preacher of the gospel. What happened to Miles Coverdale? Let's dig into him. Miles Coverdale, also known as Spelt Miles, was a English ecclesiastical former, chiefly known as a Bible translator, preacher, and a brief bishop of Exeter. In 1535, Coverdale produced the first completed printed translation of the Bible in English. Listen, turn this shit off. I just literally told y'all who, what, when, where, and how. Who, what, when, where, and how. Okay. Now, this thing said in 1535, this guy by the name of Miles Coverdale, remember now, 1516, 1519, that was Desiderius Erasmus' time. He was translating into Latin from the Vulgate. This is the first English translation of the Bible before King James Bible. So all of y'all who talking about the King James Bible, 1611, whatever the fuck, where he get the book from? Because it said version, the King James version. That means it's a type. It's a type. So this guy right here, Miles Coverdale.
Say, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right. Say,
this is the person right here, Miles Coverdale. Let me read it again for you. Miles Coverdale was an English ecclesiastical reformer, chiefly known as a biblical translator. He was known to translate the Bible. That's what he's known for, Miles Coverdale. Preacher and briefly Bishop of Exeter. Not familiar what that is, but here it is right here, though. That's that crossing those keys. Those keys supposed to be the keys that Jesus gave to Peter to build his church, so on and so forth. That's about what I know about those keys. In 1535, Coverdale produced the first completed translation of the Bible into English. I don't want anybody to be confused with what I'm about to show you right now. He gave you the first completed version of the Bible. First Bible printed by Johannes Gutenberg.
According to Wikipedia, the Gutenberg Bible, also known as the 42-line Bible, the Mazarin Bible or the B42, was the earliest major book printed in Europe using mass-produced metal movement.
Now I'm going to skip and give you guys the Gutenberg Bible. Miles Coverdale put the Old and New Testament in the same cover for the first time in 1535. That's what Miles Coverdale did. Let's talk about Johannes Gutenberg for a second, shall we? The Gutenberg Bible, also known as the 42-line Bible of the Mazarin Bible of the B42, was an early major book printed in Europe using mass-produced metal movable type. It marked the start of the Gutenberg Revolution. At the age of printing books in the West, the Europeans did not have books yet. They could not read nor write. In Europe at this time, they could not read, not the masses of people. The population could not do that. Okay? They could not do that. The Gutenberg Bible is an edition of the Latin Vulgate. See how I come up again? But had you not even known about the Vulgate in the first place, the sister said, had you not even known about the Vulgate, you wouldn't even went this direction to even know about the Gutenberg Bible. The Gutenberg Bible, in addition, Latin Vulgate printed in 1450s. Remember, in 1535, for the first time, the English version was given by Johannes Gutenberg. Please write his name down. Give me a second. There you go. Johannes Gutenberg. I done gave you about 3 or 4 names already. If these names are not brought up in the historical origins of Christianity, if these names are not even mentioned when somebody talk about how Christianity got started, walk the fuck away. Walk away from the conversation. If they're not even mentioning these names, if they're not even going close to what we're talking about right now, walk away. It's not worth your conversation of your breath. Trust me, it's not. It's going to be a whole bunch of intellectual garbage spewing out of their mouth, what we call barbershop talk. Oh, I heard that he said that she said that they said that we said that she said. There's a whole bunch of she said. I'm teaching you guys the ability to do what's called time and space, when it happened and where it happened and who. Now you can say with pride, 1535, the first English Bible was printed for the first time under the same cover by a man by the name of Miles Coverdale. However, Johannes Gutenberg in 1463 also had a version of the Bible. But while you're talking to them about the versions of the Bible, in your mind, you're talking about the Vulgate. In their mind, you're talking about the one that grandma got on her nightstand. In their mind, that's the difference between knowledge, between knowing something and being told something. That's the difference, family. You're able to separate in your mind when anybody around you say Bible from now on, ask them which one. Ain't but the King James? Okay, no, let's not talk about the King James Version, because King James Version came from somewhere else. Who it come from? Because Desiderius Erasmus predates King James Johannes Gutenberg predates that. You see what I'm saying? This is how you scholarly talk to people. Johannes Gutenberg, he was an inventor. He had the movable print, even though Asia already had the movable print already. This is the Renaissance era of Europe, the Holy Roman Empire. You're going to keep seeing the same shit we talked about 1 hour ago from those individuals. Gutenberg Bible. You see that? Got his own Bible right here. We're talking about King James. What about the Gutenberg Bible? Huh? This is the Gutenberg version. Let's go back to Miles Coverdale. So this is Miles Coverdale. Who else we got to deal with? Who was John Wycliffe Bible? This is John Wycliffe. This is the Wycliffe Bible. Who knew about the Wycliffe Bible? This was also in English. Wycliffe also directed a translation of the Bible into English. So much like his predecessor, Miles Coverdale, John Wycliffe, write his name down, family. Write down John Wycliffe. We're in class today. Write down John Wycliffe. Now you can successfully talk about John Wycliffe. You can talk about Miles Coverdale, or you can talk about Desiderius Erasmus or Johannes Gutenberg, all in the same breath while you're talking to somebody, and blow their fucking mind. You will blow their mind, family. I promise you. If you go recitation for recitation of what we talked about today, you will blow somebody's mind. Like, how do you know all of that? Because it's history. All we did today was walk right down the line of history. We didn't deviate. Now, it might have some things that we didn't get a chance to mention today, but I'll pretty much walked y'all through history. Some things we didn't get a chance to talk about, like the Dewey Bible, 1582. This is before King James Version. Way before. In fact, the Old Testament portion was published into 2 volumes 27 years later in 1609 to 1610. Watch this. Watch this. I want y'all to pay attention to this shit. The Old Testament portion was published in 2 volumes 27 years later. Oh, shit. My thing tripping. Hold on. There we go. In 1609 and 1610, by the University of Douai. The first volume covered Genesis to Job, was published in 1609. The second covering Psalms to Maccabee, plus 3 apocryphals, books of the Vulgate. Appendix following the Old Testament, Prayer of Manasseh, 3 elders and 4 elders, was published in 1610. Marginalized notes took up the bulk of the volume, offer insight issues into translations from Hebrew to Greek source of the Vulgate. The purpose of this version, sorry, where did it go to? Skip me. Okay, boom. The purpose of this version, both the text and notes, was to uphold the Catholic tradition and face the protest Reformation, which up until the time of publication dominated the Elizabethan region in academic debate. So this book right here, it says, this is the Douay Bible. Okay. The Douay Bible first had in 1610. Keep that in your head. 1610. 1610 should be planted in your mind right now. The first volume of this Douay Bible covered Genesis to the book of Job. That was published in 1609. And the second covered Psalms, the second Maccabees, and so on and so forth. It was published in 1609. Old Testament says, OT right here. 1609, 1610. The New Testament was published in 1582. It's called the Douay Bible. Remember those dates. When was the King James Bible printed?
1611. According to Britannica, King James Version,
1611.
English translation of the Bible, published in 1611 under the auspices of King James I of England. The translation had a marked influence on English literary style and was generally accepted as the standard English Bible from the mid-17th to the early 20th century.
Do y'all see what I'm saying? The Douay Bible just dropped in 1610. That's the Douay Bible dropped in 1610 in France. Europe comes out with another version in 1611, and this time they add the book of John. Because the Douay Bible only had the book of Maccabees, Psalms, a couple of Apocryphas. It didn't have the book of John. The book of John was added later, and that's when Jesus was talked about, being so on and so forth. 1611, King James Version of the Bible was printed, does not mean shit. Understand me? Unless you talk about the preceding books that got you to this book and why this book was even given in the first place. See, this happened in 1611, family. I'll make a couple more points and I'm gonna get off. This happened in 1611. And what year did the first missionaries come to America?
According to Wikipedia, Franciscan missionaries were the first to arrive in New Spain in 1523,
What
following
year
the Cortes
pilgrims come
expeditions
to
in
America?
Mexico, and soon 1620. According to Plymouth Patuxent Museums, against great odds, they made the famous 1620 voyage aboard the ship Mayflower and founded Plymouth Colony, but they were also ordinary English men and women.
They came over to America on a pilgrimage, which is a holy journey, in 1620. From 1611, when they came out with the King James Version of the Bible, guess what Bible they got rid of in order to get the King James Bible? When was the Geneva Bible published?
1560. According to Harvard Divinity School Library, Harvard University, financed by the English congregation at Geneva, the Bible was first printed in Geneva in 1560. Royal permission was obtained from Queen Elizabeth for its printing in England. In the 84 years of its publication, some 140 editions of the Geneva Bible or New Testament were produced.
1560, the Puritans were going off of this Bible. But in 1611, when the King James Bible was being rendered, it pissed the Puritans off, causing them to come on a pilgrimage to North America. Peace and love, family. I appreciate y'all taking this ride with me, man. Listen, I didn't get through everything I wanted to get through today, family. I mean, you know, like, man, we would need 2 days, 48 hours of talking, and I can do it. A straight 48-hour conversation in order to cover all this shit. But listen, thank y'all for tapping in with your boy, man. Listen, this is part one. It is.
I love you, Bobby.
It is. There's tons of it. Subscribe to my channel, man. Click that bell. Anytime I go live, y'all have to jump on here with me, man, and build with me. Listen, we're going to be back in the building again this week. We're going to build some more on this shit. It's just the beginning. This is just the beginning. Because, like, for real, we haven't even dealt with anything. You know what I'm saying? We haven't even dealt with the army of God yet. Because see, they came with the Bibles. Let me see. Let's go up Puritans. This is how they showed up right here. Remember? This is how they showed up right here on the shores of America. The Pilgrims, the Puritans, the Brownings, the Quakers, they all were escaping from Europe in 1620, before 1619, before then. Because they just changed the standardized version of the Bible from the Geneva Bible, which was under King Henry VIII. the Geneva Bible. Perfect timing because it gave Europe the upper hand over on France on the Douay Bible, and they came up with the 1611 King James version of the Bible and gave you the Book of John. The Book of John was never in there prior to then. But this is how they showed up, though. The Puritans. The Puritans, like the Pilgrims, the Puritans were English Protestants who believed that the reform of the Church England did not go far enough. You see that? In their view, the litany was still too Catholic. Bishops lived like princesses. Ecclesiastical courts were corrupt. This is what they're saying. Watch this. Petition. I can't spell. Petition. The Puritans, who believed Parliament should have more authority than the king, criticized King James Version because it had to be commissioned by a monarch rather than Parliament. The Millenary Petition, presented by the Puritans in 1602, a list of churches' practices offensive to them, and had asked for the reform of the Anglican Church. Most of their demands were refused, although it was agreed to produce new translation of the Bible, the authorized version in 1611. There was a whole situation going on before King James even got involved with any of this shit, which he never did. It was a donation to him. It was a gift to him. It was gifted to King James. But the Puritans made a lot of noise about that shit because they was used to the Geneva Bible in 1602. So in 1611, when that book got commissioned and got published and donated to King James, and the Book of John was added to counter the Douay Bible in France, 8-9 years later, probably 7-8 years later, those Puritans really wanted to come over here and escape this shit that was happening with the Anglican Church, the Roman Catholic Church, the Church of God in Christ, the Protestants. You get them coming out of this movement. You get the Lutherans out of this movement as well. So when I tell y'all the Holy War, man, we're going to deal with it. Until then, family, man, appreciate y'all tapping in with your boy. Be sure to hit the subscribe button. Tap all the way in with me next time. Click that bell, man. Peace and love.